What is going on, everyone? Happy week one. If you don't know me, I'm Devin Knotts, Footballguys DFS content manager, and we're here. We did this a little bit last year. We're gonna try and make this more of a standard thing this year. So the way this is gonna work, it's sort of I'll answer as many questions as you guys have. So we'll go for about an hour. Let me tweet this out to let everyone know that we're live, and I'll go through some of the games, go through some of my thoughts, and then you guys jump in. This is entirely for you. So the intent is that we will go, like I said, as long as there are questions, and yeah, very excited for it to be week one. So just like Alex did. So if you guys have questions, just post them in the chat. And then I'll try and get to every single one of them. If there's duplicate questions or they become overwhelming, then we'll have to, pick and choose. But I think we should be able to answer all of them. So let me just get to it. So first question, Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson in prime revenge game spots. What's the over-under for that game? It's pretty low. I think that it as a sneaky play, you could certainly do it in like a cash setting or something. I certainly wouldn't, I wouldn't take it just because we don't know Sam Darnold. I'm as big of a Sam Darnold believer as I think there is. I think he got a raw deal in New York. Still a lot of talent, and still 24? Yeah, he just turned 24. So I think he's younger than Joe Burrow. He's 6 months younger than Joe Burrow. So I'm a believer of Sam Darnold. Who do you pair him with is the question. I tend to think Robbie Anderson's not bad, but you could go Christian McCaffrey and Sam Darnold, and just hope he catches 7-8 passes. And but I would take one shot on it. Honestly, I wouldn't go crazy there. Better flex, Laviska or Chase Edmonds. Let me just look at my projections really quickly, and I'm assuming if you guys can say PPR, non-PPR, FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever, it does help me answer these questions. So based off of PPR, it depends. So that I have them within a half a point of each other. I typically, if it's like less than a point, I'll go the running back, just because it's safer. And we don't know Urban Meyer's offense, so I would probably go Chase Edmonds, even though I have Laviska just a little bit higher. You're looking at Jordan Adkins as a cheap tight end. Do I think he's viable? Let me see. Once again, it's one of those that on FanDuel he's definitely not, because you don't need to go that cheap. So I'm going to assume it's DraftKings. Where's Jordan? Akins, I think. Yeah, Akins, 3,000. And sorry, I'm looking off it to my other monitor here. I probably wouldn't do it. Like if I was going to go that low, I would go Anthony Firkser, or Gerald Everett. I think that Akins, they don't have a lot, and they may not score, and that's the problem. I don't know. I'm staying very far away from this Houston team. I think they're going to be terrible. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. I'm not saying anything controversial here. So I don't know how Tyrod Taylor is going to do, how that offensive line is going to do. There's a lot of questions there that I'm just staying away. Baker Mayfield or Ryan Tannehill. I'm probably going. God. I'm gonna go Ryan Tannehill. I just don't believe in Baker Mayfield. There's questions on Odell Beckham's health. I think he's fine. Kevin Stefanski came out and said he hasn't taken contact, but he really hasn't taken contact since 2019 when he had that hip injury. So I wouldn't worry too much about. I wouldn't worry about Beckham, but I would go with Ryan Tannehill there. Fitzmagic in play versus the Chargers defense. not this week. Not this week. Curtis Samuel being out, I think, hurts. They still need to find an identity. I think that this could be one of the lower scoring games of the week. And what's his price? I mean, that's what comes down to everything. 5,500. In a GPP, you could. I would probably find a way to go up to Joe Burrow or go down to Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is the best value play of this slate. He's down at 4,400. So I would probably go there. Odell Beckham safer than Marvin Jones Jr. I'm assuming this is season long. Yes, I would go Odell Beckham, even with the concerns that Stefanski had. He didn't really answer the question. If you guys saw that, I don't read too much into it as a Browns fan. So it was sort of a Belichickian answer where he's just like, every player is going to be looked at in the next 48 hours. That was limited. So I don't think there's anything there. Is McLaurin this weekend purely a volume play, or is it a good matchup? It's not a great matchup. I mean, if I look at Los Angeles, last year, I think they were middle of the pack. It's not a bad matchup, but the price is just far too low. I don't have it in front of me, but it's primarily price driven. He's too good of a player. It's one of those situations, and we have those in week one fairly often, where players are priced a certain way, and then an injury happens. So Curtis Samuel brings more targets to McLaurin. So it's primarily the Curtis Samuel thing should bump up McLaurin, and his price should be higher. Favorite game environment outside of Arizona, Tennessee. Game environment. I'm assuming you mean like which games do I want to target? I don't think you mean fan environment. I'm sort of against a lot of people here, but I really like the Eagles-Falcons game. I think Jalen Hurts could be like a sneaky GPP play. I think Matt Ryan is in play. I don't love Kyle Pitts. I think that some of these other Falcons receivers, Russell Gage, Calvin Ridley could be in play. But if you look at Hurts, I think Hurts is a guy that has a lot of upside. We saw it last year in a couple games. He had 300 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. So I think he could be a play. The other thing I'll say is there's a lot of love for Minnesota, Cincinnati. And outside of the running backs, I think I like both Mixon and Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's my number 3 on DraftKings, number 2 on FanDuel player this week. And Joe Mixon is really high up there on DraftKings. So I really like the running backs there. And then a player that I do like that's, I think, going to be popular is Najee Harris on the Steelers. I think that Buffalo is a team that's built to stop the pass. They have struggled at times against the run. So I do like Najee Harris. I think he'll be very popular, especially on FanDuel. I think he'll be one of the most popular players of the slate. But those are some plays that I do like this week. Which of these 3 do you prefer? Diggs, Nuke, Ridley, and a cash. Let me just pull up FanDuel. So looking right now, Ridley's 8,100, Diggs is 7,900, and Hopkins is 82. Give me the cheapest of the 3. So I have them all within a half point. So I'll go Stephon Diggs. I think as the 6th highest receiver, that's too low. I think he's one of the top 3 or 4 receivers in football. And from a quarterback standpoint, I love Kyler Murray this week, but I love him because of his feet more than his arm, but he should be fine. Roethlisberger, I just don't, or no, you didn't say Roethlisberger. You said Matt Ryan. Calvin Ridley. Yeah, there's still questions just as far as how that offense is going to handle itself. I think Diggs is a little bit cheaper. Crazy to stuff the big 3 running backs in cash. So you're going to do 2 plus Robinson. but you don't think you can stomach 2 Jags in your main lineup. I would question who the other Jags player is in your main lineup. I love James Robinson this week. Is it crazy to stuff the big 3? And I'm assuming you mean Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, and Alvin Kamara. Yeah, that's too much on FanDuel. The problem is McCaffrey is what, 10,400? That's a crazy price for a half-point PPR site. So I like my FanDuel rankings. I have Kamara, Cook, Derrick Henry, and then Christian McCaffrey if I'm paying up. So I have him 4th pretty clearly. Just because we don't know. I mean, it's a 17-game season, and we saw it in the preseason that things are being handled differently. They're tracking things more. Are they going to give McCaffrey 25 touches? His over-under for rushing attempts is 18. So he's going to need 2 touchdowns at 10,400 at least. I think that's too high of a price for almost any running back on FanDuel. Could he hit it? Sure. But is it 50% likely to hit? I don't know. You guys are the best. Thank you. We don't claim to be. We just like doing this and like helping you guys out. With the more Callaway Pittman chalk on DraftKings, are the middle price receivers the way to go, or prefer to go all the way up for a lower than usually owned J.J. Adams Metcalf? I think you'll have, if you want to go really under the radar, the middle of the road players such as Deontay Johnson, Juju, but like are those guys any better than some of the low end rookies? Maybe Deontay, but does he have the upside that one of those 3K guys does? If you're trying to go different, I think that there's people that will pay up for the top end receivers. Not a ton, but I have. Let me pull this up as far as what I have roster percentages for. Sorry, oh no, week 1 is getting to us. Roster percentages. So at the top end, I still have Devontae Adams at about 14%. I have Tyreek Hill at about 12%. So I think there's still people that will go up that way. I think the middle ground, if you want to be different, I have Keenan Allen at 5%, Adam Thielen at 3%, Julio Jones at 2%. So like that would be the range that I would go if you want to be different. Dallas Goedert or Jonnu Smith, Tyson Williams or Darrell Henderson PPR. So at the tight end position, I am very likely to go Goddard. I would say almost 100% certain there. Just because we don't know about Jonnu. I mean, he was streaky in Tennessee. I think that, incredibly talented tight end, but there's still questions there with Mac Jones. There's still questions there with the offense. There's still, how are they going to run the ball? How are they going to split the snaps between him and Hunter Henry? So there's still questions for me at least. But Tyson Williams or Darrell Henderson, I'm probably going. God, this hurts me. I'm probably going. I'm going Darrell Henderson. No, I'm going Tyson Williams, and I hate that play. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a tough one. Let me just double check what the numbers are saying. Henderson. One second. Not Henderson. Tyson Williams. Tyson. I'm probably going Darrell Henderson when it's all said and done. What offense do I want to play? I think that Sony Michel gets time later in the year and it becomes more of a split. But I think week 1, if Henderson's healthy, keep an eye on it. But I would go Henderson there. Is Hooper a decent punt tight end option on FanDuel versus Kansas City? No. Let me find another alternative there. So Hooper is what? He's 5,100. At 5,100, there's not a lot. You're really sacrificing some stuff. But I would go Jonnu Smith over Austin Hooper. The problem with Cleveland, there's 3 guys there. You have Hooper and Njoku and Harrison Bryant. Plus you have Nick Chubb. Plus you have Kareem Hunt. Plus you have Odell Beckham. Plus you have, Jarvis Landry. So like Hooper's probably, he's definitely below Hunt, Chubb, Beckham, Landry, maybe the third receiver in red zone. He could be behind Njoku. So if you're looking for a touchdown, he's like 6th or 7th option. That's a pass for me. Hurts for cash games. It depends on the site, but the way I'm approaching this week is I'm either paying up on FanDuel and going with Kyler Murray or Josh Allen. And then on DraftKings, I'm going down to Mac Jones. I do have Jalen Hurts on FanDuel in a contest that is like a single entry GPP or like a three person max entry GPP where you can enter 3 lineups. But in cash, I think there's too much volatility there for me. How do I feel about Pittman and Callaway chalk? I'm taking one of them. And you can decide which one you want. I'm going with Callaway. But I'm not going with both. And let me just pull up my FanDuel lineup right now. In my article on Footballguys, I do post my lineup. Let's see. So the receivers I have currently are McLaurin, T. Higgins, and Callaway. I think that there's enough ways that you can go where you don't need to take both of them. I think one of them probably struggles. Pittman, I like a lot. I think he's definitely in play on DraftKings. I think he's in play on FanDuel. He certainly is a guy who, if he has 12 points, he's probably going to pay off salary. But I just don't feel comfortable with taking 2 of those guys. Robbie and Darnold stack, revenge game. We touched on that a little bit. GPP, big GPPs only. But even then, I think it's hard because Darnold in a big GPP, does he have the upside? I don't know. I think it's hard. I mean, in a big GPP, you're looking at, is he going to pay off compared to the Mahomes or the Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. So it's hard. It's hard. He would need 300 plus yards and probably 3 touchdowns. If you want to take Robbie, like that's fine. But taking Darnold is a tough proposition. This is the hardest question of the night here. FanDuel cash, Robinson or Najee Harris. Currently, I have both. So if I have to pick one, it depends what you can do with the extra 600 is what I would say. If you feel good about saving 600 and going down to Robinson, I'm fine with it. But if you're like, it kind of just gives me an extra defense, it like bumps me up a little bit, I would go Najee Harris because I do have him slightly, and I mean slightly above James Robinson. I love both of these players. I think Houston's defense, they struggled mightily last year against the run. They have lost J.J. Watt. Who knows where their head's at as far as how they're going to come out and perform. So is this a team that's going to show up? Is this a team that they're going to ease? Are the Jaguars going to ease Trevor Lawrence into week 1? I tend to think that answer is yes. Trevor Lawrence he's looked okay. I don't think he's looked phenomenal in the preseason. So I would take both, but if all things equal, I would go Harris. It primarily is DFS Q&A. We will answer anything, though. If you guys want to know about me, if you want to know about what temperature it is outside, I'll answer anything. Do we know how Goddard and Ertz plays out? Well, no. The short answer is no. I think we have an idea that Goddard is going to be the number one guy. Ertz is. I think they tried to trade him in the offseason. They're certainly not happy with him. But yeah, I think that I would go with Goddard. Ertz is going to be sneaky, and Ertz could definitely catch a touchdown. He could definitely be a red zone type guy. Let's see. Yeah. Yes. This is a very, very fair point. When you fade Dalvin Cook, very bad things happen. I've been on both sides of that. I've faded him and he's gone crazy. I've started him and he's done really well. So Dalvin Cook is, I think he's my like I said, he's my number 2 player on FanDuel. I don't have him in cash right now, which scares me. But the price is just too high on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I do have him in there along with Kamara. I have 2 of the top guys. I'm fading Christian McCaffrey as of now, but I struggle with that. I may end up, when it's all said and done, I'm likely going to end up with McCaffrey and Kamara on DraftKings, on DraftKings, and Kamara on FanDuel, which I won't have nearly as much Cook as I probably should. Cincinnati's defense is terrible. They were one of the worst against the run last year, so it scares me for sure. But I love Dalvin Cook this week. The difference maker is they still have weapons outside of Cook. How are the Saints going to move the ball is the biggest question. All right, because no Michael Thomas, no Traquan Smith. They cut Latavius Murray. Marquez Callaway, but I think Kamara's in for a huge game this week. You often try to correlate with the running back, but expecting Falcons, Bills, and even Jags to be major chalk. Do I think New England, Carolina, Denver, Minnesota defense are the best pivots? I like the Falcons defense on DraftKings. I think they're way too cheap at the minimum price. Denver, I love. They're expensive, relatively expensive, but I think that they're in a really good spot going up against Daniel Jones, who has been turnover prone. Minnesota's fine. I think that they are, going up against a pass-heavy offense, which should create turnovers. And Cincinnati's offensive line isn't great. So New England, I love the under in this New England game. I think that Tua is going to struggle, so they could definitely be in play. I like all those defenses. I don't love Carolina. I'm a big Zach Wilson. I like Zach Wilson. I think that Carolina's defense isn't that great. So I think that this could be a close game. But if I had to rank them, I would probably go I would probably go Denver, New England, Minnesota. Sure. Let's see. FanDuel cash defense. Right now I have sort of all over the place when it comes to FanDuel defenses. I was on Cincinnati just because they fit, but I've since moved off of that. I am on checking my lineup to make sure I'm giving you the right information. I'm on Jacksonville against Houston. I think at 3,900, they're in a really good spot. Like I said, I don't know where this Houston Texans team is. I think they're playing for 2022. They've sort of hired a coach that is going to be there for a year or two and then probably be done. And, So right now I have Jacksonville. I'd love to find a way to get up to, what was it? It was $100 more than what I had. Denver, maybe? Yeah, it was Denver at 4,100 was my top defense. So if you can fit Denver in, I think that they're in the best spot. They've really retooled that defense. Vic Fangio has that blitz mentality to create turnovers. So I think that it's a good opportunity. If I'm playing Mac Jones, who am I pairing with? I wouldn't play him in GPPs. I don't think the upside's there. But on DraftKings Cash, I have him because it allows me to go up and get another one of those top-end running backs. So in cash games, I don't necessarily have to stack him. I'm hoping at $4,400, I'm hoping for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if he gets that, that's what? 10, 18 points, 4x, 4.5x. Like that's more than fine. Yeah, that's we're on, as Belichick would say, we're on to week 2. If you're facing Dak and CD. Kittle or Kelsey? It's Kelsey for me. And if you want to go GPP, just because Kelsey will be the most popular tight end, probably on both sites. Probably. I think Kyle Pitts will be really popular on DraftKings. I don't love Kyle Pitts. I would rather go Hockenson if you're going down. But Kittle is going to be a guy who sort of goes under the radar. He's going to be a guy who probably in that like 6 to 8% range, where Kelsey's going to be double that. And if you're in a cash game setting, I would definitely go Kelsey. You can never go wrong with him, especially on FanDuel where it's, the touchdown dependent. So one of my strategies that I've been doing this ever since the last 4 or 5 years has been pay up for when there's an elite tight end. Let's see. Hold on. Some of my favorite cash game plays. I've talked a lot about these already, and it really depends on the site. So let's just go through the quarterback. Quarterback, Mac Jones on DraftKings. If you want to go up on DraftKings, I would probably go Josh Allen over Kyler Murray. One, because he's $200 cheaper. 2, I think he has more chance for the 300-yard bonus than Kyler. I like Kyler more on FanDuel. He's currently my cash game quarterback there because of the running upside and the rushing touchdown upside there. And there's not a $300 bonus, and he's cheaper. Running back, Najee Harris, James Robinson on FanDuel. On the top end of DraftKings, I like how did I just rate this? I had it Kamara, McCaffrey, Cook. Yeah, I have the Jags defense right now on FanDuel. If you had to pick Dalvin Cook plus Hockenson or Najee versus Najee plus Kelsey, it depends on the site. And I was debating this exact same thing earlier. On DraftKings, I would go Dalvin and Hockenson. On FanDuel, I would go Najee and Kelsey. The difference there is I think Hockenson is in a really good spot to have 8 catches easily. I don't want to say easily because it's a tight end and Jared Goff's the quarterback and he stinks. But it wouldn't surprise me if Hockenson had more catches than Kelsey. So with that said, in the full PPR setting, I would go Cook and Hockenson on DraftKings and Najee Kelsey on FanDuel. Big Ben over 17.5. I sure hope so. It depends on your scoring. We have him at right around there, but I'd say slightly over. I think that he can get 17.5 is what? 2 touchdowns is 8. I mean, if you're in a 6-point touchdown league, he'll definitely crush that. But and then he needs what? He needs 10, 250 yards, minus a point for a turnover. 275 and 2. It's close. It's close. I would guess slightly over. Favorite game stack for GPPs. Let's see. I mean, the obvious one I think is Kansas City. I think Mahomes, Tyreek Hill is probably my favorite top end wide receiver. I think, especially on DraftKings, I think that he has huge upside. And then you could run it back with like an Odell Beckham. And who else? Sort of a weird week. And I'll apologize again for looking up here. It's where I have my monitor with all my stats. But I think you could stack this Pittsburgh-Buffalo game too. I think that's a prime game to target. You could take like a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, run it back with Claypool or Deontay Johnson, something like that. Yeah, I think Zach Wilson. I don't know who he reminds me of is the problem. The biggest thing is the Jets organization is just a disaster. I think they ruined Sam Darnold. I don't think he ever had a fair shake. I still worry about just the Jets in general and how much talent they have around him. I mean, Jamison Crowder's out. He seems to be always hurt, but Corey Davis, can he step up and be a consistent number one? So I do think there's questions there. Sam Darnold never had a fair shake, primarily because the wide receivers that they had around him were so terrible. You had, I think it was Quincy Enunwa for a little bit was the number one guy. Robbie Anderson before he was Robbie Anderson. Who was the Jets' leading receiver last year? It's probably Crowder, but he was probably hurt for a lot of the year. Let's see. Yeah, 699 yards. But then you had Rashad Perryman, who can't even make the Lions. You had Braxton Berrios. Like, the biggest question for me for Zach Wilson is, can Denzel Mims take a next step? Because if he can, coming out of Baylor, he could be a nice piece to go along with Corey Davis. But I don't think Sam Darnold ever had a fair shake. How do I compare Najee to Gibson? It's a good question. What's their price difference? I think the reason there was Gibson was a little more expensive. Yeah, Gibson's $7,000, and Najee is $6,500. So I have them right around the same. I think I have both of them right in the 13, 14-point range. But Najee was just a little bit cheaper. I think the Gibson's fine. I think it's a little tougher matchup against the Chargers. I think the Chargers could be a sneaky good team this year. They get Joey Bosa back. Justin Herbert has sort of reinvigorated that offense. So I do think that I think they're a very similar play, though. Nobody's talking about Russell Wilson. He tends to start off hot. I certainly did last year. You love the Arizona game against Tennessee. What are my thoughts? I love Kyler Murray. I talked about him a little bit. Russell Wilson has burned me enough times that I have a self-admitted bias against him, and I will be fully transparent there that I don't typically play him, and it's cost me on certain weeks. Now, if he gets going, and they do have a new offensive coordinator, so I do want to see how their offense is going to come out. I think Tyler Lockett's in for a really big year. The question I have on DK Metcalf is, like, he was very, very good early on in the year on those streak patterns, and then they sort of figured him out. And I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if defense is adjusted, knowing that, hey, we figured out how to stop him. But you look at his first half and his second half, and he was a big reason for the decline of that offense. So I'm a little concerned about DK, but I do like Tyler Lockett a lot this year. I think that they will throw more. We know where those targets are going. They're going to Metcalf. They're going to Lockett. I think Lockett's priced significantly better, especially on FanDuel. If I look at Metcalf's price on DraftKings, he's 75 and Lockett's 67. So I think DK is just a little bit too high for me. Once he settles down and gets to a price where I'm more comfortable, I'm certainly willing to take him. He's a special talent. It's just, is he going to develop into that Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins consistent guy, or is he going to be sort of in that second tier? And right now, based off of his past performances, you could definitely take him in a GPP, and I have him at 6 to 7% rostered for tomorrow. But I don't know. I have some other build. The build just doesn't work this week. What else do you guys have? What else is going on? Excited that week 1 is back. It's a fairly, I don't want to say weird week, but it's a week in which we're going to have to figure it out sort of together. We're going to learn a lot this week. And I think we talked about it on the Power Grid, and we're still working out chemistry there, particularly around Austin having to step away, for those of you that follow the Power Grid, just for he has a lot on his plate with the back end stuff of Footballguys. So I'll answer this one just for the heck of it. Is that a start of a mustache? I actually shaved my entire face today. Didn't do a very good job of it, but had a mustache on Thursday's show. I'll answer a couple more. Like I said, I'll go as long as you guys have questions. If you want to talk about future week projections, if you want to talk about defenses, if you want to talk about anything in general. Do I think Stafford's going to be as hoped this year? Well, it depends what you mean by as hoped. Is Stafford going to be... It's an interesting dilemma. I think he's going to be more efficient, certainly going to be more efficient than he has been in the past years. But statistically, is he going to be that much better? I tend to think not. Like, I think he's going to throw the ball less than what he has. Certainly early on in Detroit, they're going to be losing less games. Like, from an overall team perspective, he's definitely an upgrade over Jared Goff. As a Rams fan, I would be very excited. Am I going to get overly excited about him from a fantasy perspective? Not yet. I just don't think they're going to come out and throw the ball 45 times. I think they're still going to be a run-first team. That's sort of Sean McVay's MO. But we'll see. I mean, and that's the beauty of week 1, is that there are so many different quarterbacks this week that I wouldn't go crazy on your bankroll. I wouldn't go, I've certainly been a victim in the 10 years of doing this, that I've gone all in on week 1, and it's like I have to scale back week 2, and I have a great week 2, and it's like, oh. So try and be consistent. Next week, you will thank you if you have a bad week. Now, if you have an unbelievable week and you have a good lineup, then, there's always the shoulda, woulda, coulda, but there's so much unknown this week with, I think there's 15 different quarterbacks have changed places, something like that. So it's a long season, and it's a week longer than last year. So we don't know how that's going to impact things. Are running backs still going to get the top end carries like they had in the past? Are they going to start slower? There's just a lot of questions. So I think that there's a lot that we're going to learn. I can't wait for the ball to kick off at noon here, 1:00 Eastern. It's going to be exciting. Pitts over Hockenson FanDuel. No, not for me. I'm sort of taking the approach on FanDuel that I'm avoiding. I wrote this in my article today. I'm avoiding all rookies not named Najee Harris. And the reason there is you don't really get enough of a savings on FanDuel as you do on DraftKings. So on DraftKings, some of those guys are $3,000. Elijah Moore, Amon St. Brown. Who else is down there? I'm sure I'm forgetting so many, and you guys are just laughing to yourself. Rondale Moore's 3,000. Number of guys. Jalen Waddle, I think, is really cheap. Waddle. He is. I don't know why this isn't working. Waddle. There we go. Yeah, Jalen Waddle's 3,600, who's a great play on DraftKings. So on DraftKings, I'm sort of going with the rookies, but I'm not doing it on FanDuel. I'm sort of taking an approach of give me the guys that are more established. And if there was a bigger price savings on some of these rookies, if there was a PPR where they had a floor, like Rondale Moore could have 5 catches, but he could have 5 catches for 22 yards because he's a shifty he's not a deep guy. He's like 5'6", 5'7", athletic as all can be, and I loved him at Purdue, but how's AJ Green going to be in that offense? How's DeAndre Hopkins? Like there's just so many questions that, 5 for 22 on DraftKings at $3K, you can manage at 7.7 points, but at, Rondale Moore on FanDuel is 4,900, and at 5,300 I can get Michael Pittman. So like the difference there is too big. I know that's a long way to answer the question, but I'm taking Hockenson just because he's safer. He's going to kill the Bears with their terrible secondary. I think that game is going to be awful. I think that game is going to be like 14-6. So I would take the under on that game for sure. For FanDuel Cash, you're prioritizing Kelsey over Cooks? As we stand right now, yes. For those that have a Football Guys subscription, I'll be posting an update to my FanDuel Cash game lineup in the morning, but the reason there is Najee Harris, James Robinson. I just think both of those guys could have 80, 90 yards and a touchdown. And Kelsey, the Browns have historically been one of the worst teams against the tight end. I know they got John Johnson, who will be a significant help against Kelsey, but I think the Browns are in trouble this week. I think that the reason there, if you look at the preseason, Mahomes, I think, played all 3 games. Baker Mayfield played like 6 snaps in the preseason. Beckham played nothing. Landry played nothing. Jadeveon Clowney didn't play. Myles Garrett didn't play. Philip Walker, their linebacker, didn't play. I don't think John Johnson played. Denzel Ward didn't play. So like it's basically a preseason game for the Browns. I think that there's going to be miscues. I think that they're going to struggle. I think that, that could lead to some garbage time fantasy points for Beckham. It could lead to some garbage time points for Nick Chubb. It could lead to all sorts of goodness. But I think Kansas City comes out just firing. The first half in that game, you should strongly consider, if you're in a state that takes wagering, to look at Kansas City first half. No, so for those that have a Football Guys subscription, John Lee Tip and Pick, who's on the Power Grid, he is probably one of the smartest guys I know. He's an oncologist. He just took on a new job, and with all the health stuff that's going on in the world, plus he's getting an MBA, he had to take this year off. We do have we hired a person named Ben Cummins who has been around the industry for a long time. He did an article that I think is very good, that is very similar to John's article. Not John, and John's not replaceable. I think he's the best. He's the best person in the industry, bar none. But we tried to hire someone who's very, very good. Favorite under the radar leverage contrarian plays for GPPs. I talked about it a little bit. I think Keenan Allen is a great play, especially with the question marks surrounding Austin Eckler. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my roster percentages to make sure that I give you the right numbers. Justin Jefferson at less than 5% rostered is probably a good play. Going down a little bit. Robbie Anderson, I have at about 3%. Chase Claypool, I have at 4%. I think both of those guys are fine. I talked about Odell Beckham. He'll be about 2% or so. So I think that there's a garbage time scenario there where he can have a big game. At the running back position, let's see. A tough matchup, but what if Jonathan Taylor catches like 6 passes? That's what I'm sort of debating. Like, yes, Seattle has a tough matchup. They're one of the best teams against the run. Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner, we all know Darren Reed on the defensive tackle. Like, they're built to stop the run. But who is going to catch the ball in Indianapolis? How are they going to move the ball? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. Like, T.Y. Hilton's out. Michael Pittman's good, but that's sort of it. Paris Campbell, could he be a guy underneath? Maybe. Is there anybody else there? They don't really have a ton. Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, like they don't have a lot. But what if Jonathan Taylor comes out and catches 5 or 6 passes? That could be a play that's sort of sneaky. Marquez cash game lock for you. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm there. I don't love it. I think that he could certainly be a guy that everyone looks back and says he's undrafted and all the signs he hasn't really done it in the regular season. He's a preseason guy. But I just look at Jameis Winston's going to throw the ball. Who's he going to throw to? And that's the question you have to ask. Like, where are those targets going to go? Probably to Kamara. But after that, Deontay Harris, is he going to see targets? I don't think so. I mean, he'll see some, but, not a lot. I was going to be a complete fade of Callaway until Traquan Smith was out. Like, Lil Jordan Humphrey is not that great. Adam Troutman, like, there's hope there that he could be good. But Jameis has never really targeted tight ends. Like, Cameron Brate had, like, a decent year with him one year, but he had 171 yards last year with the Saints. Like, so I think it's Marquez and it's Kamara, and the Saints could be really bad, guys. I mean, there's a likely scenario, and apologies to any Saints fans, but Jameis is a question mark. Kamara is elite, obviously, but who do they have outside of that? And that, they have cap trouble. The defense is good. Defense is good, but they could be a team that surprises people with how bad they are. Yeah, John Lee, he is Superman, and he's living like this completely different life, trying to solve like health outcomes and trying to do research and all sorts of stuff. And he's leading a big team, but he's a great friend, and I think that he's certainly willing to help where he can. He's on the power grid. He's going to be. I'm trying to get him on one of these at some point, but we're going to have guests here coming in the following week, so it won't just be me rambling and talking. We'll have some more debate between two people, so you guys will get to know some other people as well. FanDuel cash lineup wide receiver core makes me a bit nervous. Yeah, it does, but it's priced right, and that's what I have to give both FanDuel and DraftKings credit. Most week ones are horribly priced, like just atrocious, where it's like, hey, this guy's going to be 60% rostered, and they've really done a good job. Now, some of it's been luck that they have not had to deal with a lot of late injuries, but they've done a pretty good job of pricing this week. Do I think Claypool and Najee Harris could both have great games, or is it one against the other? They both could. They're both good. They're independent of each other. So there's a scenario where this game is 35-31. Claypool has 2 touchdowns. Harris has 2 touchdowns. Like, are they correlated that if one has a good game, the other is slightly less likely? Yeah. But there's definitely a scenario where they both could have a really, really good game. Is Cooper a top 12 receiver this season? No. Let me just go through my list. So receivers I would have above Amari Cooper: Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins is a tough one. Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, probably Metcalf. He's probably just outside the top 12. It's close. But it's going to depend on what CeeDee Lamb does. If CeeDee Lamb keeps going crazy, then maybe CeeDee Lamb's a top 12 receiver at the end of this year. Yeah. Imagine that if Tyrod Taylor just has a ridiculous game and Nico Collins has 2 touchdowns. What a world. Yeah, he's fine in a PPR setting. Not great, certainly not great, but if you can make up for it in your wide receivers, that's fine. What's the lowest I would go on FanDuel? Depends. Are you talking about GPPs or are you talking about cash games? In a cash game setting, the lowest I would go, just pulling it up, lowest I would go in a cash game is TJ Hockenson. Lowest I would go in a GPP, I would go all the way down to, let's see, Jonnu Smith at 49, Ferkser at 47, Troutman. No, I wouldn't go Troutman. It's Ferkser or Jonnu would be the lowest I would go in a GPP. My shirt's changed colors 5 times. Is that my camera or your edibles? It might be my camera. Thoughts on Djax tomorrow? I've given 0 thoughts to Deshaun Jackson. I'm assuming you're meaning Deshaun Jackson. I don't know another Djax, but maybe that's just me getting old. Yeah, I've given 0 thought. I'm looking to see. He's not even. Oh, he's playing tomorrow night. That's why I haven't given him any thought. I don't know. As a showdown lineup, maybe, but I wouldn't play him in a all-day Sunday type thing. How's Hunter Henry? I need a site, but I can look up. Let me look up what I put together for Hunter Henry. I think he's in like the 5 range. No, he's lower than that. I have him at like 1%, maybe less. Jonnu is at like 6. So Hunter Henry, I think I have him at like 0.6, 0.7%. Yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown could definitely pop back up. If he has his head on straight, he's definitely one of the top receivers in football. All right, we'll go another 5 minutes, and then we'll cut it off. I want to catch some of the college football games that are getting close to wrapping up. So get your questions in now, and then we'll be back every week. So hopefully if you guys hit the like button, please, if you haven't subscribed to Football Guys, I would assume most people have, but hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be notified as when we go live. But the like button does help us if you're enjoying what we're doing here tonight and trying to build. I'd love to have more people. I mean, 50 in week one, sort of a last minute unannounced thing I'm happy with. But I'd love to see this thing grow, and you guys can help do that. So any other questions that you guys have? I will answer a couple more. Yeah, probably, because Devontae Adams will be completely healthy. But, they could still use a second target there. And regression touchdowns, he had 11 touchdowns last year. He's not going to do that again. But could the yards go up? He only had 586 yards. So he could have a 650-yard, 5-touchdown, 6-touchdown year, which is fine. They could be. It's going to depend on how good Mac Jones is. So they're certainly going with Belichickian, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and then the other tight end, who I'm not even going to say his name. But I think you all know who I'm talking about, back in the early 2010s. No, baseball is wrapping up. I'm sure you were very confused and if you thought we were talking about baseball. All right, so I'll give it one more minute. If there's no more questions, we'll cut it off. And it wasn't Ben Coates. If you guys can hit the like button, that would be helpful. Okay, anything else before we call it a night? Okay, so thank you, everyone. I know that it's late. I know that I'm missing an awesome White Sox-Red Sox game, so that's disappointing. And, I'm in Chicago, so not a White Sox fan, but I do want to see them do well. Any relation to Don Knotts? No. But I thank you, everyone, for hanging out. Like I said, I want to make this interactive. I want to make this fun. So if you guys have any suggestions, shoot me a DM on Twitter, shoot me a message. Always happy to help you guys. I think any of our Football Guys staff members are. But we'll be back every week here, 10 o'clock. I don't know if I'll be here every week, but I'll be here most weeks. If there's not a personal obligation, I'll be back. And like I said, we're going to try and bring people in, rotate people through, have more interactive debates, and just see where this thing goes. So thanks everyone for your time. And I will see you next week.